these are some high-level takeaways for how we can improve the system. I'm actually going to start with number 2. So data expansion, and number 3, overlay function. So we talked a lot about, one of the things was like, can we have just a general Fishers app or some way of including either through multiple apps or through one app, some of the specific information that's useful for other fisheries besides tuna, different depths, different variables, things like that. We talked about a user dashboard of something that's more like preloaded and customized that you can get back to really quickly for the area that you typically go to all the time. And we also mentioned that we've got some tools in the works at NANOOS already that might address some of those desires, and that could be a future webinar topic. We talked about customizing temperature ranges and gradients and colors and things like that to be more interactive. Again, depending on which fishery you're working in, you might want a different temperature range. And the overlay functions, thinking about creative ways to see more data, more different types of data at once. And so one of the ideas was you've got a color map for one thing, but you've got just contours for something else. And then you have point and click data where you can see the values on the side for a third thing, potentially. So just trying to find useful ways to see multiple types of data at the same time. And then for how do we, and also making it easier to download whatever data you're looking at, which we do have links to, but how can we help facilitate the user to get that data faster and easier, more intuitively? And then how do we increase the visibility of NANOOS? We talked about a lot of things, a lot of great ideas. One was, Joe was like, let's put QR codes and advertisements on the backs of gear from different fishing shops and things like that. You buy your new piece of gear and you've got a little NANOOS tag on it that says, check us out. Another was having advertisements come up on digital displays in stores, or even more powerful perhaps as an advertisement tool is having kind of a NANOOS weather and water forecast come up on those digital displays, either at marinas or at sports shops or things like that, so that you're not just seeing an advertisement for NANOOS, but actually a demonstration of what NANOOS could give to you with a QR code or a link or something like that. There was interest in getting connecting us to the different apps and sites that people already use, and so partnerships with existing apps or platforms, or even more visibility on some of the NOAA sites, potentially where we can with our IUS NOAA partnership, to getting people going back and forth between those two places. And outreach efforts to different communities like the Coast Guard and commercial fishers and things like that, continuing that. And everyone, lots of folks on our line, Rachel, acknowledged that they've had great interactions with you at different shows and just really complimented that, and would love to continue working with that. So I'll stop there and say, if anybody in my group thinks I missed something or misrepresented something, please speak up. That we had some really great conversation and I can't cover it all in a report out. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Roxanne and the Fisheries group. That was fantastic. Okay, so Jonathan, is it you or is there someone else from your group?
Actually, it's going to be someone else from our group, Jenny Damaris, who's an emergency manager here in Lincoln County. And take it away, Jenny.
Okay, so apologies, everybody. I'm literally on vacation in my RV in the inundation zone. So, okay, so we talked about real world experience. Some of the things that we're thinking about being able to improve the system, and I'm reading from the notes. So discovery, it's hard to find. Let's make it known and easy for life safety events. How do we make NANOOS a household name? That was definitely one of my key things. Consider buying web domains that point to the app, something that's smaller, catchier. Training, YouTube videos should be easily accessible in the app and on YouTube. Data access, phone versus computer. Also thinking about the age group of our population, how do they easily access this information? app versus a data viewer embedded in cars and other transportation. So think about those GIS mapping systems that already exist. How do we partner with them or get them to see this as sort of real-time information that's necessary? Location. Folks need a current location or ability to drop a pin in case they don't know where they are. And then how do we increase the visibility of NANOOS? Messaging, hotels, local businesses, state parks. I'm just going to add here, what type of user-friendly, easily printable, cost-affordable marketing tool do we have that they can say, I think this is important to me, it gives value, how can I quickly print it? Thinking about those coastal visitors, visitor centers, exhibits, aquaria, etc. Local resources, dedicated local funding to disaster preparedness for outreach. I have lots to talk about that if anybody's interested. And then advertising and marketing, catchy phrases, QR code, bookmarks. Really, again, I think a lot of this comes back to marketing. Work with local leaders, signage, and pamphlets. All those tools that you would see in your toolbox to be able to communicate that message. Good?
Thank you, Jenny. Andrew Bernard, did you want to add anything to emphasize that number 2 there on the second part about the local resources?
No, I thank you, Jenny, for bringing that up. I really appreciated that. I think that's one thought process for us to think about is how do we connect more with state and local legislators and government officials to reemphasize the importance of this. I know there's been a tremendous amount of work done there. Thank you, Jenny, for bringing that up. I really think that funding is a piece of the puzzle. So I'm glad we're including that here.
Jonathan, anything else or anything else from the group?
Not for me. Anything else from the group? Great, thank you, Jenny, and everyone else who participated. It was a very vigorous discussion that we had. It was some really excellent ideas.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jonathan and Jenny and the entire Coastal Hazards group. Okay, one more to hear from. That is the boaters, and I believe we're going to hear from Rachel.
That is correct. Sorry, I'm jotting down all of these great ideas and thoughts that are coming from all the potential outreach. So I'm going to report out our safe navigation. We had some good talk. I've got a bunch of notes. Margaret, who I know needs to leave early, I don't know if she's still on, had developed these wonderful slides that had a lot of wonderful feedback on things that came up as she was navigating through the Boaters app, specifically on visualization, like how we can maybe limit confusion. So there's this big disconnect between how boaters and maritime navigators look at data and information compared to how oceanographers look at information, and it's very opposite and contradictory. And so one of the things that has come up is how confusing the wind direction arrows are. There's no the barbs, there's confusion on whether it's direction to or from. And so we heard some potential ideas and thoughts and links for other ideas and ways that we might be able to clarify that, adding more webcam feeds, because having eyes on the water is just so useful, especially if you're out there. Things can change so quickly, and you might have all of the available forecasted data and current conditions, but it might actually look very different out on the water. So more cams, maybe actually getting actual eyes on the water from Coast Guard stations, and then linking to some of the other sites, different ways of visualizing, like the wind roses, which have other more detailed information. And something that comes up a lot is maybe trying to make it even more simple and more intuitive We are always trying to make these really user-friendly, but there's still a lot of information. And so I'm hearing a lot of people asking for short videos. And that is something that we're gonna spend some time and energy on, is making these real quick, tell you how to do one specific thing, answer one problem. And so be on the lookout for some of those coming soon. And then we had a good brainstorm session on ways to increase the visibility of NANOOS. Margaret is very involved in the social media aspect of some of the organizations she's a part of. And so that gives the idea that we can really kind of piggyback on one another. Like I can create content and then link it to her, and I can work a little more closely with some of our other member organizations on their social media platforms, and we can all just kind of help one another. And yeah, the integration, make sure it's linked, that we're linked in other NOAA sites and vice versa, and just having more integration. And then Jenny Waddell out on the coast with sanctuaries has been thinking about different ways to do some outreach with coastal communities. And it brought up this idea of like different communities really get information in different ways. And a lot of the coastal communities, that word of mouth is just so important. And so it's really important for us to develop relationships with some of these communities. So trying to spend more time with that. And then also try to engage with some users of all the stand-up paddle boards and kayaks, and people who are on the water on these human-powered craft, because the number of stand-up paddle boards in our region is just increasing and is going to continue to increase. So we're going to need to learn more about their specific needs and how we can meet those. And those are my main points. Anyone from our group from the Safe Navigation have anything else they would like to include? And thank you, Cassie and Anna, for all the note taking. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Okay, so we have some time here where we could take about 5 minutes to open the floor to a general discussion. I want to reiterate some thank yous that I heard, and some of those I've got a whole list here, but I want to mention the Consortium for Ocean Leadership, which is the outfit that Nick Rome, our NANOOS program manager, works for half-time for NANOOS. And he was able to get volunteers for our NANOOS workshop. And the volunteers, you've been hearing their names, and I really encourage folks to turn your cameras on. Kruti Desai, excuse me, Maggie Chori, Cassie Wilson, and Masha Edmondson. So big round of applause for, and our own Anna Boyer. Sorry, Anna. Our own Anna Boyer, who also volunteered. So big round of applause for those folks. So I'd like to open this to open discussion. Anything from our rapporteurs I may have forgotten, or any other ideas from the general audience. Floor is open. Just raise your hand or unmute your mic and jump in.
I just wanted to say one quick thing that Rachel's group reminded me of that came up in our group, which was around some safety alerts and things like that. We were talking about fishing and other fisheries, and even, we talked about, Dan Ayers brought up the razor clam fishery, and how even though a fishery is open doesn't mean it's safe for you to participate in it. And so thinking about ways of including information and communicating what the safety issues are. And so more webcams on the beach, more information about what's the wind speed, what are the waves right now, should you really be out there trying to dig clams, and things like that came up, and I saw that overlap with the Safe Navigation group, so I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you, Roxanne. Any other remaining thoughts?
Jen, one of the other topics that came up in our group, and I cannot remember if Jenny mentioned this, but a few folks actually raised the issue about looking to the future and being cognizant of other types of coastal hazards. And so sea level rise was one of the topics that was mentioned, and being able to integrate some of the mapping work that's being done by agencies that relate to potential changes in flood levels in our low-lying areas along coastal margins. And so that was another topic that was raised in the coastal hazards section.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really important. Michael, over to you.
Yeah, just a quick one. And this probably pertains more to distant tsunamis than local, but one thing that seems to be frequently overlooked and is near and dear to my heart is the water quality impacts of a tsunami. Everybody, of course, is overwhelmed by the waves, the surges, but even a small, at least when it gets over here, a small tsunami can have profound water quality effects. And frequently that seems to be overlooked in advisories. In Honolulu, the government, city and county would release all clear, and yet our instruments were still showing severe water quality problems. So just something to kind of keep in mind, that there's more to a tsunami than just currents and surges. There are water quality impacts.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Thank you, Michael. Jenny, let's hear from you.
Thanks, Jan. I think you and I know as well as anybody how hard it is to keep monitoring assets out there off the coast. And my question was really about how we indicate to users when assets are unavailable. For example, both of our NDBC moorings that help provide marine forecasts are currently missing. Yeah. And how do we flag for folks when the forecasts and predictions are likely to be less accurate because of missing assets?
That's really an important thing. We do have that capability. A lot of times we just don't even know, we find out about it like, oh my gosh, here's this federal asset that's off. And we've been working to kind of strengthen the relationship that the regional associations have with NOAA. And the problem is that NOAA is not just one thing, right? There are so many different offices. And so, for instance, we noticed yesterday that the navigational charts are down. They're down on the NOAA website. They're down on NANOOS. We didn't know that because we don't get a notification like saying our charts are down. If that affects your apps, just FYI, so this is something that we are working to increase that connection. And I noticed some people mentioning in their report outs better integration with NOAA. And with that, one of the thank yous that I have on my list is to thank Oriana Villar, who is from NOAA, from the IUS office back in DC. And she's been on our community workshop. And Oriana, I know I'm putting you on the hot seat here, but if you'd just like to introduce yourself and say a few words, we really welcome that.
Yes, thanks, Jen. And I apologize because I was late because I think I had a wrong link, but I'm glad I made it. It was extremely interesting. I was able to join the lightning talks and then the navigation breakout. So thank you for the invite and thanks for all the participation. So really quickly, I'm Oriana Villar. I'm the regional coordinator for the US IOS office. And it was interesting to hear the topic that was brought up about NOAA and further integration. It was brought up in my breakout room, and then I heard Roxanne also report it out from her breakout room. So I think and I know Jen and I have talked about this before. So I think we need to kind of reconvene and see how we can continue to address that and tackle that and see if we can get to more integration and better integration. But thanks again for the invite and the participation.
Oh, thank you for joining us, Oriana. We're so pleased to have you here. Any other thoughts for the general discussion? And I know that there's a lot of stuff being put in the chat, and I'm so thankful for that. We have recorded these sessions. We will be getting that whole chat log. So know that that's a really effective way of getting your thoughts out there. So my crying cat in the background is not going to, he's sad because my husband left and that upsets him. So anyways, Portobello aside, we're going to push on, and I have the audacious task of synthesis remarks, and boy, I always love that, you know. So like, synthesize what you just heard 10 minutes ago that is synthesizing a ton of stuff, and do it on the fly. And so I'll try my best, but one of the things that, well, first of all, thank you. I can't say it enough to everybody who's been participating, because loud and clearly we're hearing that NANOOS is useful and that you are finding utility from it. So that's just incredibly reassuring. I'm hearing, you know, we want customization, which must mean that you're using it, because if you're not using it, then you don't care about it being customized, whether that's for the location or the data view. So that's really good information. In terms of our first objective, how can we improve the system? There just is too great of granularity of detail that I'm not going to try to synthesize that, but I know that we got an enormous amount of good feedback. So we definitely succeeded at that. In terms of how to increase the visibility of NANOOS, I heard some good things there too, and I'm going to comment on a couple. These QR codes, you know, it was so funny. I was just chastising someone for putting a QR code on a slideshow, a PowerPoint show, and I said, you know, that's cute, but put the URL, spell it out, you know. And I realized, okay, well, I'm a bit of a dinosaur, so those cute little QR codes are definitely here to stay, and they're becoming more popular. So we will definitely think about how we can avail ourselves of those. But another thing I heard was video clips and outreach, whether that could be a talk or not. And I just really want to encourage you all. I know that we do our best, and Rachel Wold is a fantastic engagement and outreach leader for us, but we have limited, you know, time, space, bandwidth. And so anytime that you could like project NANOOS's message. And so if you want some slides, if you want some support, just let us know. If you record a video clip, that could be one of the most powerful things that we present. I know that Amigo Charters recorded a video when we first had the Tuna app way back in time. And I saw Craig Rissian is here with us. A shout out to him, who's helped NANOOS a lot over the years. So those kinds of things are really valuable. We used to feature it on our website. Now the app has changed so much that we can't, but if you're willing to do that, please let us know your quotes, all of that. And then I want to reflect on something that Andrew said, and he said, funding is a piece of the puzzle. And that is, it couldn't be better said. Funding is a huge piece of the puzzle. And so our ability to do the kind of improvements that we heard about from you is obviously you know, scales with the funding and the time that we have. But I want to underscore something I said early on about reaching out to your congressional delegation, just letting them know that, hey, you know, was at a NANOOS workshop, sure do love the stuff they're doing, go IUS, you know, something like that. You know, if they hear about it, that makes a big interest. So big impact, excuse me. So I don't want to harp on that, but I do want you to know that it's really important because, you know, before I was part of IUS and joined this whole, you know, idea of how things get funded in the federal system, I never thought of reaching out to a congressional to say thank you, to say something's working. But guess what? It's really important. So, okay, with that, I'm going to say a few more thank yous. I wanted to mention that on board also today, we have Troy Tanner, who's our website and software engineer. Really glad for his participation. A huge shout out to him and his team and the distributed team who worked to make these innovations. To Mike Cosrow, you heard from Andrew Barnard, who's our chair of our board for our governing council. Mike Cosrow is the vice chair. Wanted to give a throw out to him. Also, Sius, thank you for joining us. I saw several people from Canada. We are so thrilled to have Canadian partners, and that's a really important aspect of the way we work in NANOOS collaboratively, because the ocean knows no boundary. So we want to respect that. And again, to our speakers. Okay, so with all of those thank yous, and I do have one more, but I'm saving it till the end. What I want to shift to now is continuing the conversation. So we talked about this. Let's think about what you want to hear from next from us. We like the idea of doing a webinar series. We will have an in-person workshop, the beautiful one that we were scoping in Astoria and Nick worked so hard on. That is not off the table, but it's probably not going to be this year. And so we want to keep this energy up and going. So please get rid of the slide now. And I'd love to hear from all of you on your ideas. We put some there on the slide just as a, you know, kind of grease the skids, but what would you like to hear about? Okay, so I hear Daniel, as discussed in the fisheries subgroup, there's interest and also challenges with community citizen science, contributions to data portals. The OSU DO study on crab pots is one example. This could be a webinar topic, and he would be happy to help organize it. And Daniel, that's fantastic. We've been working with Francis Chan and Linus, I forget his last name, on getting the crab pot data into the NBS system. So let's definitely stay in touch on that.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, great. Any other ideas? Cat's got your tongue.
Jonathan made the comment after the breakouts about looking to the future and doing scenario planning for, you know, climate change impacts. So I'm just wondering, since I was in the coastal hazards one, are there other types of hazards we'd want to address in a future webinar? Sea level rise was mentioned, so I'll just throw that one in the bucket.
Yeah. Do people want to hear more about NANOOS science? Do you want to continue the focus on the applications? I see Dwight, a webinar on transboundary data sharing and collaborations would be of interest to ONC. That's a great idea, and we'd be very happy to do that. +1 on the science. Yeah, sometimes I feel like we focus so much on the, you know, the data delivery for the apps, for the societal uses, that sometimes we forget to really make sure that we're letting people know. I mean, the fascinating things that we're finding out about marine heat waves, about hypoxia, those sorts of things, about coastal erosion. Any challenges to keeping the sensors running themselves? Oh, yes. Lots of challenges. Yeah. You know, and we could even just have a webinar where we have some scientists who do our observations and, you know, talk about some of those challenges. That could be really of interest to students, to, you know, the general public. Okay, excited about the potential of an aquaculture focused webinar, lots of data being collected there that can be useful for NANOOS, and lots of potential to help integrate NANOOS with some ocean operations users. Yes, I really feel that, you know, our connection with shellfish growers has been strong and prosperous both ways in terms of exchange of ideas and knowledge. And that's an incredibly important user group for NANOOS. So we're really happy to push forward to that. Dawn, who was just, I think she had to leave, is really, so you all saw from my NANOOS announcements that Margaret, what's her last name?
Pilaro.
Pilaro, yes, left us and went to the sunny Southern California, and really sad to see her go, just because we've had such a long and a wonderful relationship with her. But Dawn is fantastic, and we will continue to maintain that. And yeah, that's a great idea about the kelp and seaweed farmers. I keep seeing more and more of that on the news. Okay, well, keep the ideas coming. Thank you so much for reporting in the chat. I think we're going to bring this to a close now. And I just cannot thank you all enough for staying. We had 60, we've still got 40 people. That's just fantastic and really reassures us. My final thanks goes to Nick Rome, whose wonderful idea this was to have a community workshop, whose perseverance to, you know, launch into a in-person venue, and then for us all to work together on how to shift this into a one that is virtual, has been just fantastic. Thank you, Nick. And thank you everybody that I mentioned previously. And Rachel, great recap that you can connect with us through the NANOOS website. There's the contact us, and that those emails come directly to several of us. So we really do listen to it. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to say that we are standing adjourned. Enjoy our beautiful logo, and thank you to you all for joining today. Can't thank you enough. I'll stay on if anybody has anything they want to say, but happy to wish you off to your days, and thanks so much for the kind words in the chat.
Everybody.
Thank you,
Have a
everybody.
great day.
Take care.